Hey students and welcome to The Explainer। आज हम एक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग मिस्ट्री सॉल्व करने वाले हैं जिसका नाम है हेरिडिटी। यप, आपकी साइंस बुक का चैप्टर 8। वी गोइंग टू फिगर आउट कि आप अपने पेरेंट्स जैसे क्यों दिखते हैं बट उनकी एग्जैक्ट कार्बन कॉपी क्यों नहीं है। सो आर यू रेडी? लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड।
Okay, so let's start with the first piece of this puzzle. हम सब in some way or another अपने parents जैसे ही दिखते हैं, right? We have the same basic body design. 2 eyes, a nose, 2 hands. But at the same time, we're all a little different. We're all unique. ये जो similarities or differences got amazing mix है ना, that's what hereditary is all about.
So, here's the big question for today. Just think about it for a second. Maybe your eyes are like your mom's, your hair is like your dad's, but your height is something totally new, totally you. How does that happen? How does nature decide what's a copy and what's a change? Well, इसी राज से आज हम पर्दा उठाने वाले हैं.
Alright, let's do a quick and fun little experiment. Right now, everyone check your ears. Dekho, the bottom part of your ear, the earlobe, is it hanging free? Ya fir, is it attached directly to the side of your head? This is a perfect example of an inherited trait, something you get from your parents. So go on, check Kia. Which one do you have?
So, this entire process, the way features and traits are passed down from one generation to the next, that is what we officially call heredity. In simple terms, you can think of it like a rule book that nature follows. And now, it's time to meet the scientist who first figured out how to read this rule book.
Let's meet the hero of our story, Gregor Mendel. He's often called the father of genetics because he was the very first person to figure out the rules of this incredible genetic game. He proved that heredity isn't magic. It's pure science and mathematics.
Mendel was a monk who was just passionate about science and math. और उन्होंने सिंपल से मटर के पौधों pea plants को यूज करके inheritance के कुछ सबसे बड़े secrets unlock किए. What made him so brilliant was that he carefully recorded the traits of every single plant in every generation, something nobody had thought to do before.
Mendel started with a really simple question. He asked, what happens if you take a tall pea plant and crossbreed it with a short pea plant? What would the new plants, the progeny, look like? Would they be somewhere in the middle or something else entirely?
And the results were shocking. The first generation of plants, which we call the F1 generation, were all tall. Not a single medium-sized or short plant. It was like the shortness trait had just vanished into thin air. But had it really? And this is where the story gets really interesting. When Mendel took those tall F1 plants and bred them with each other, in the next generation, the F2 generation, the short plants came back. About 1/4 of them were short. This proved that the shortness trait hadn't disappeared. It was just height.
Now, this amazing result from Mendel's experiment gave us two incredibly important concepts. It's time to understand the difference between dominant and recessive traits. This right here is the biggest clue to solving our heredity puzzle. It's pretty simple, actually. The trait that showed up in the F1 generation, like tallness, is called the dominant trait. We write it with a capital T. And the trait that was hidden, like shortness, is the recessive trait, which we write with a small t. All you need is one copy of a dominant trait for it to show. But for a recessive trait to show itself, you need to have both copies.
Okay, so we now know that traits are passed on. Some are dominant and some are recessive. But how does this all actually work? What's the mechanism happening behind the scenes? Well, the answer is hidden inside a tiny molecule, a molecule we call life's secret code.
Think about it. Every single detail about you, from your hair color to your height, it's all written down in a master instruction manual. And that manual is called DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. It's inside every single cell of your body.
So how do you get a trait from DNA? Well, it works like this. A specific section of your DNA is called a gene. This gene has the instructions to make one specific protein. That protein then does a job in your cell, like creating a hormone for growth. And that hormone results in a visible trait. For instance, a tall plant. It's like a chain reaction.
So, let's take all this knowledge and apply it to a really common question. How is the sex of a baby decided? Is it a boy or a girl? Believe it or not, the same rules of genetics are at play here. So, in humans, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now, 22 of these pairs are the same for everyone. But the 23rd pair, the sex chromosomes, are different. Females have a perfect pair, XX, and males have a mismatched pair, XY. So here's how it works. A child always gets an X chromosome from their mother because that's all she has to give. But from the father, the child can get either an X or a Y. If the father gives an X, the combination becomes XX, which means it's a baby girl. And if the father gives a Y, the combination becomes XY, meaning it's a baby boy. So it's clear, the chromosome from the father determines the sex of the child.
All right, so let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways from today. What did we learn? First, that genes are passed on from parents to children. Second, some traits are dominant, while others are recessive. Third, all the instructions for these traits are written in our DNA. And fourth, in humans, the father's chromosome is what determines the sex of a child.
And now, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've seen how heredity creates these tiny variations in every generation, making each one of us unique. But just imagine, if these small changes keep adding up over millions and millions of years, what could that lead to? Well, that, my friends, is the beginning of evolution. The reason we have such an incredible variety of life on Earth. But that's a story for the next explainer. Thanks for watching.